Hello, thank you for coming. On November 4th, 2008, I spontaneously went into the streets and started celebrating with my neighbors. Fireworks, marching bands, applause, tears, a parade, because the first African-American president was elected in the United States of America. This was the culmination of hundreds of years of storytelling. It was incredible. Regardless of your politics, it was a time to rejoice. The next morning, that joy turned into despair when I realized that in California, Proposition 8 had passed. It was the first time in my lifetime that rights had been given and then taken away from a group of people. In this case, it was very personal because it was my community, it was my family whose rights were removed. Not long after that passed, posters appeared throughout the city announcing a march for equality. I had never been in something like this, but I told my friends, hey, we have to go. Come over to my house. Let's make posters. Let's get together and stand up for what has just happened. So I wasn't alone, clearly, because 9,000 people showed up in Seattle that day, and hundreds of thousands of people throughout the world turned out. It was the largest march for LGBT equality in human history. Well, Proposition 8 still existed the day after the march, but I was inspired like hundreds of others, so I reached out to two women, Amy Balliet and Willow Witt, who had spread the word so quickly around the world. They knew something about search engine optimization and storytelling. Amy's blog, Join the Impact, had been read by millions of people in a matter of hours because she knew how to get her blog post to float to the top of a search engine when people were looking up what is Proposition 8. So when they were learning what happened, they learned that they had something to do to react. So I wanted to learn everything Amy had to know about storytelling and how to get your story out there, and at that time, blogs were where it was at. Wikis were also important. We used wikis to empower people all over the country and the world to form grassroots movements about issues that mattered most to their communities. And while this was revolutionary to civil rights movements at the time, it was limited in the scope of the ability for people to tell the stories that they wanted to. It was more about event planning than it was about storytelling, and so it faded. But while it was fading, there was a woman named Charlene Strong traveling the state of Washington, telling her personal story about how her wife died in a tragic flood, but she was prevented from visiting her wife in the hospital. She was prevented from making funeral arrangements, and so her story was resonating with lawmakers and citizens. And so the state of Washington passed the domestic partnership law to give families like hers and mine the right to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, our opponents came on the attack and gathered just enough signatures to put Referendum 71 on the ballot. So there was this little thing called Facebook, and most of the old school campaigners in this state said, ignore that. We're going to send them mail. And I said, no, I'm not going to ignore that. I'm going to go on Facebook, and I'm going to start telling my friends and to ask their friends to start telling stories. And so in 6 short weeks, 40,000 people joined the page, told their stories, and asked people to vote. And at that time, that was pretty significant. We were able to turn out the younger vote, and for the first time in US history, we approved an expansion of LGBT rights right here in Washington. It was incredible. It was inspiring, and it empowered me to keep going. So I found every outlet I could think of: Twitter, blogosphere, YouTube videos, and I just kept telling stories, my stories, other people's stories. I interviewed them on podcasts. I felt like we were getting somewhere, but there's still so much to do. We repealed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but in more than 31 states, people can still be fired for being gay, lesbian, or transgender. People are still getting kicked out of schools and jobs, and housing. So when 2 people came up to me and said, hey, what do you think about joining this company called Change.org? We have this crazy idea where we're going to empower anyone, anywhere, to start and join campaigns about issues they care about. I was like, really? This is a job? Yes, I'm here, I'm coming, I'm on my way. And so that was last May, and over the last year, more than 10 million people have come to change.org to join in campaigns and start campaigns, thousands of months, about issues they care about. And they're doing it by telling their personal stories about issues that are important to them. Like Molly Catchpole, a young college graduate who had a Bank of America debit card account like millions of other Americans, but just couldn't afford that extra $5 fee that they were going to propose just so she can access her money. So she started a petition on change.org. Hundreds of thousands of people joined her campaign. The national media picked up the story. Thousands of tweets went out. And Bank of America folded. Really, one girl versus Bank of America. Not only Bank of America, but all of the banks canceled these debit card fees. Then there was Sean Chapin, who was tired of teen suicide, so he started a campaign to ask his favorite baseball team, the San Francisco Giants, to make an It Gets Better video, and they did, and so did baseball teams all over the country. And Trayvon Martin's parents, just last week, millions of people signed their petition to prosecute their child's murderer. He was arrested because people told their stories and came together. So what I want you to take away from this is every single one of you have the power to change the world by simply telling your story. And as long as human beings continue to innovate and create tools to help us distribute our stories in a sustainable manner, a democratic fashion, free from government or corporate censorship, the world will become a better place because of you. Thank you.